Chijioke Nwosu was a man of wealth and power. As one of the most successful lawyers in Lagos, he lived in a grand home with his wife, Neka, and their teenage daughter, Ada. But despite all his achievements, there was one thing he could not control: his weight. For years he had struggled with obesity, and his wife had taken it upon herself to manage his diet. Every morning, Neka weighed him, carefully noting every small gain or loss. She ensured that his meals were carefully portioned, forbidding excessive indulgence. Though Chijioke knew she meant well, he resented her control over his eating habits. He longed for freedom, for the days when he could eat to his heart's content without feeling judged. One day, Chijioke defended a powerful businessman, Alhaji Danladi, in a high-profile case. Many whispered that Danladi had deep connections to the underworld, but Chijioke did not care. A case was a case, and as long as he did his job well, he was rewarded handsomely. With his skills, he managed to find a loophole that set Danladi free. In return, Danladi expressed his gratitude in grand fashion, hosting a lavish celebration aboard his private yacht. There, he assured Chijioke that he owed him a favor, one that could be redeemed at any time. Life continued as usual until one fateful night. Chijioke and Neka attended an exclusive party where the finest foods and drinks were in abundance. Each time he reached for a plate of fried plantain or a rich bowl of egusi soup, Neka's disapproving glance stopped him. He hated feeling controlled, but he kept his frustration to himself. After all, it was just one night. Eventually, feeling suffocated by the restrictions, he decided to leave early. As they drove home through the darkened streets, Neka, trying to lighten the mood, reminded him that life was about more than food. She leaned in, whispering to him playfully. Distracted by the moment, Chijioke did not see the old woman crossing the road. By the time he slammed the brakes, it was too late. The woman, later identified as Mama Abeni, was a respected herbalist from the Bororo Fulani community, a nomadic group that had set up camp outside the city. The news of her death sent shockwaves through her people. However, with his influence, Chijioke easily avoided any serious consequences. His friend, Justice Okonkwo, dismissed the case, and Chief Ogbu, the corrupt police commissioner, ensured that all evidence worked in Chijioke's favor. The community protested, but they were powerless against such authority. As Chijioke and Neka left the courthouse, a frail old man approached them. His eyes were filled with sorrow, but his voice was calm. He was Baba Abeni, the woman's husband. Without anger or accusation, he reached out, gently touching Chijioke's cheek. Then he whispered a single word, "Odachi," before walking away. Chijioke dismissed it as the ramblings of a grieving old man. But in the following days, something strange happened. He began to lose weight at an alarming rate. At first, he celebrated, thinking it was a long overdue blessing. He mocked Neka, saying that her strict diets had failed, and now he had discovered a new, effortless way to slim down. But as time passed, his joy turned to concern. No matter how much he ate, the numbers on the scale kept dropping. He devoured large meals, yet his clothes became looser. His tailor, astonished by the drastic change, warned him that something unnatural was happening. Meanwhile, Justice Okonkwo and Chief Ogbu were facing their own horrors. Okonkwo's skin began to harden and peel, resembling reptilian scales. His wife, terrified by the transformation, revealed to Chijioke that Baba Abeni had also touched her husband, whispering the word Echidiki, meaning serpent man. Chief Ogbu, on the other hand, suffered from severe boils and sores, his once powerful face now unrecognizable. Overwhelmed by his torment, he took his own life. Chijioke, growing desperate, sought medical explanations, but every test showed that he was in perfect health. Yet his body continued to waste away. Neka, worried beyond words, begged him to see specialists, but no doctor could understand what was happening. In the depths of his fear, he remembered the old man's touch. Could it be that he was cursed? Determined to find answers, he tracked down Baba Abeni's people, hoping to plead for mercy. But when he arrived at their settlement, they treated him with hostility. Gina Abeni, the victim's daughter, hurled a wooden figurine of him at his feet, declaring that his suffering was only beginning. She struck his hand with a slingshot, leaving a deep wound. Desperate, Chijioke called Danladi, cashing in his favor. Danladi, ruthless as ever, sent his men to attack the Bororo camp, killing several of their people. Gina's husband was among the dead. Chijioke felt a momentary sense of victory, thinking that eliminating the source of the curse would free him, but he was mistaken. When Baba Abeni finally agreed to meet him at a sacred river shrine, Chijioke was nothing more than skin and bones. Kneeling before the elder, he begged for his life. Baba Abeni handed him a small calabash of yam porridge and instructed him to mix his own blood into the meal. The curse, he explained, could only be lifted if he tricked another into eating it. Chijioke, though filled with guilt, saw no other option. He returned home and carefully planned his next move. He called Ada, asking her to stay with a relative for the night. Then he prepared the cursed meal and served it to Neka, who ate it unsuspectingly. That night, he went to sleep feeling hopeful. By morning, he felt stronger. His face no longer looked gaunt, and his limbs were regaining their fullness. He rushed to the bedroom, only to find Neka's lifeless body. Her skin withered and decayed as though she had aged 100 years overnight. As he stumbled back in horror, he heard a sound from downstairs. It was Ada. She had returned home early and eaten some of the porridge. He felt his world collapse around him. In his desperation to save himself, he had doomed the two people he loved most. Overcome with grief, he considered ending his own life with the remaining porridge. But before he could, the doorbell rang. It was Dr. Mike, a family friend. Seeing an opportunity, Chijioke slowly smiled and invited him in for breakfast.